very careful, they may find that the code that they purport to be their own actually comes from a wide variety of sources. And if I was the judge, I would simply look at it and say, I think that everything that SCO owns actually belongs in the public domain, and that SCO might actually lose all of their intellectual property and their company be worth virtually zero. And if I could prove that they knew that already, I might find that the Security and Exchange Commission of the United States of America would have a very interesting case against the people who are major stockholders of and boards of directors of SCO. So there's nothing to say that they might not be right, but I don't think that they are. So, and I think that the fact that companies like IBM and Hewlett-Packard and Novell are all telling their customers, go ahead and use Linux. If they even thought for the fraction of a moment that SCO had a case, they would not say this. They would not tell their customers to go ahead and use free and open source, because their customers would be very irritated with them later on. So I think that it's basically SCO against the world, and I think SCO is going to lose. Big time.
Interesting times ahead.
Yes.
Maddog, another question I'd like to ask you is, people buy proprietary software all the time, but what are the hidden costs associated with proprietary software?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You live in a country that the business language is predominantly English. I live in a country where we hardly ever speak anything but English. But when you go to countries outside of those, there's a whole different flavor of things. Colombia, for instance, their major language is Spanish, but they have native Indian tribes that speak 60 different languages. India has 2 different character sets, 18 different official languages, and 5,000 unofficial languages. There are some countries that have a large illiteracy rate. And so how do you get people to use computers that can't read or write in any language? And these are things that large companies simply can't afford to put money into, because the resultant sales that they would get are so small that they can't convince their stockholders that this is something that they should be doing. The open source community can take people who are interested in solving those types of problems and put them outside of the mainstream development, and therefore be able to solve these types of problems. There are other things, military instances, things where governments have to consider how long should your government survive, and is your government capable of continuing with its computer systems when in time of war, for instance, or in time of embargo. Well, what happens when a company goes out of business? You know, what happens if a computer company goes out of business and it's that company's email system that you're using to run your government? Can you maintain that yourselves without the source code of that email system? And if people say that, well, that's why I pick a large company like Microsoft to be able to run my company or buy my software from, because they're a large company, well, then I can answer back and I can say Wang or Prime or Data General or Digital Equipment Corporation or Compaq, which were all large companies in their time, but which no longer exist. And so I think that a lot of countries and cities, Munich, for example, said, yes, the price of the Microsoft solution may actually be cheaper than the open source solution, but we have to think of the long-term strategic issues that have to do with the longevity of companies and the ability to maintain it for a city whose new town hall is 700 years old.
Maddog, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been really interesting, and good luck with your adventures.
Okay, and I'm happy to say that I went to South Africa in 2001 to talk about open source. I went in 2004 to talk about open source, and I hope to get back there soon again to talk about it.
We're looking forward to having you back. Thank you.
Thank you.